This is the School Success Podcast, a podcast for school leaders to learn from other school leaders what's working and what's not, and to get inspiration and encouragement, as well as strategies to grow school enrollment, connect with families, retain teachers, recruit teachers, and everything in between. You guys are heroes, and I cannot thank you enough for pouring into this next generation that's coming behind us. My goal is you will take at least one thing away from every episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Please enjoy the School Success Podcast.
Time for school.
Hey, school success makers. Today we're joined by my new friend Eric Thompson out of New Jersey. He's the interim principal over at his school up there. We talk all things about some ideas for teacher retention, how they're doing with their students, some different extracurricular activities they're doing, how they navigated COVID, and more. It's a fun one, so we hope you enjoy the next episode of the School Success Podcast. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the School Success Podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Slater. I'm joined by a new friend out of chilly, icy right now as we record this, New Jersey, and he is Eric Thompson. He's the interim principal at Community Charter School of Patterson. They're doing some amazing things up there, and we're going to dive into all of them. But before I take any thunder away from him, I'm going to pass it off to him to introduce himself, his school, and a little bit about himself. So, Eric, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. My name is Eric Thompson. I am currently the interim principal of Community Charter School of Patterson. I am so excited to be here, so grateful for this opportunity. I have been in education over 12 years. I've taught, I have been instructional coach, I've been vice principal, interim principal, and so I've had a lot of experiences working with education down through the last years. I've seen a lot of shifts, a lot of evolution in education. And so I am excited to be here and to share some of my experiences with you today.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to dive into all of them. And before we do that, I love hearing about where people are specifically from and a little bit about the area. So I've actually personally never been to New Jersey. So what's some of your favorite things about New Jersey and living there?
Yes. So currently we are we are in Patterson, New Jersey. And I would say some of the great things about is that it's close to New York, so it is right there. So we get to like hop on the train and then take about 25 minutes to get to New York, which is not far at all, which is great. And then in addition to that, I would say some other great things that are around the area, great food. We have a lot of Mediterranean food as well as a lot of African food, which is really, really good.
Awesome. Are you originally from New Jersey?
No, I'm not. So I'm originally from Washington, D.C. And so that's where I started my education career. And I've been here in New Jersey for 7 years.
All right. Well, obviously, it sounds like you like it, even with all the icy rains and stuff you guys had this morning. You still like it, right?
Yes. Yes, I do. Making the best of it.
Well, tell me a little bit about your education background then. I know you talked about being a teacher and assistant principal and all these different things. So tell me kind of about the evolution of Eric Thompson and how you've gotten to where you are today.
Yes. So I myself personally, I went to Bowie State University for my undergrad. And so I was there. And then I got my master's from American University. And working in DC, I started off in DC public schools. And so I started off as a teacher there actually through an alternative route program as a DC teaching fellow. And I was teaching there for 4 years, which was a great experience, and then relocated to New Jersey. I'd say so a lot of my experiences have been around working with reading with students and really getting students to be able to read on grade level, which is a challenge all in itself, and one of the biggest things. I'd say for me, a lot of my journey has been really learning others, because in education, we all work together. And so it is about learning those who you work with, learning teachers, learning staff members, learning other leaders, and then figuring out how you can push them and how you can help them grow while you yourself are still evolving, still learning how to lead, and still learning how to make sure that everyone is moving in the way that they should be moving.
Okay. Well, I know you've been at this school. You're currently interim. How long have you been at this specific school that you're at?
Going on 2 years now.
Okay. Did you start as a teacher?
So I came in as vice principal here, and I've been the interim for a while now. So yes.
Okay. Good deal. Well, I'm guessing obviously you like the school. You've been there a couple of years, and obviously I know you probably want to continue to grow there. Do you have? I mean, being there a couple of years, do you typically? Um, let's see. Let's see how I want to word this. So, being there 2 years, have you already built up? You feel like a really good relationship with the staff there as well as the students. Even though obviously students come in and out, but how's that been for the first 2 years?
Yes, I think we build a great relationship. I think a lot of it has been me understanding the student and understanding the staff and trying to be supportive. And in providing support, I think that that has really helped us to build a relationship. I always lead from a space of empathy, and being empathetic, you learn to understand people where they are so that you're able to move them. And I think that has really allowed our relationship to grow here at this particular school. I'd say another thing about the relationship is that the school feels like a family. It really feels like a family here. And so teachers pitch in, students really are always excited to come through the door. Teachers are helpful to one another. It really is like a family. And I think that has really been what has helped the school to sustain even through like challenging times.
Man, I love that, and I think it's so important. And so I mean, yeah, important for these students who have, we don't know, obviously everybody has different home lives, but to have something that is consistent and safe that they can go to every day that's like a family. I obviously love that and think it's so very important. Do you guys have any specific things that kind of draw students into your school, like sports, arts, anything specific you guys do?
Yeah, so we have a lot of extracurricular activities. We have what we call, we are considered a community school. And so, because we are considered a community school, we actually have services that wrap around for parents, services for students. And those services consist of, we provide health opportunities for parents. We connect, if there's a parent that's having, if there's a parent that's having a challenge with living somewhere, we connect them to resources throughout the community. We also provide extended learning time. And so, with the extended learning time, we allow our students to stay longer, but it's also a time where they can be a part of the arts. So, we have piano, we have guitar, we have a basketball team. And so, they're able to really spend that time also developing socially. A part of the school family dynamic at our school, I think, also draws individuals closer to our particular school because of all of the offerings. For instance, like with the current pandemic, we've provided vaccines, we've provided students food even when we were not in school. So all of those wraparound services really, I think, draw parents here. And then I think the what keeps parents coming is the fact that the teachers are very engaged and they love the students. And sometimes that can be hard to come across. And so when parents get in, they are excited and happy to stay.
I love that. And how do the teachers communicate with the families? Do you guys use email? Do you use texting? How does that relationship kind of build?
Yeah, so we use a variety of items in order to communicate. I think for me, something that I believe in is that the more communication and the variety of ways to communicate, the more you can get the message out there. So we use email, we use text messages, phone calls. We also use Class Dojo, which is an automated system that's able to send messages out to parents, whether it is behavior messages, whether it is, for instance, we had a delayed opening today. So we send out messages on Dojo and they go straight to parents' phones where they're able to get all of our up-to-date messages. Also, in addition to that, use Power School to communicate with parents. And Power School is a platform that allows us to provide grade. We grade with that, but we also take attendance with that. So they also, with Power School, were able to send out messages. So we have a variety of ways that we try to make sure that we are constantly in communication with families.
And does that fall under each teacher has access to each of those softwares that they are in control of sending out communication, or does that go to the front office to send out all communication?
Yes, so teachers have options to be able to send out that communication. They can send it out themselves. There are some things that I send out, then there's some things that the office sends out. But we definitely try to encourage teacher communication with families on a consistent basis.
Okay. No, and that's obviously super important. And you dove into this, briefly. You kind of mentioned a couple of challenges. I love to, let's dive into that. I ask everybody a little bit about what are some challenges you guys are facing, and some of the most common ones. Which obviously, if you have some of the same, that's fine because a lot of the people I've interviewed and talked to, it's we got, obviously everybody's got different COVID issues and restrictions that they've had to obviously navigate. Of course, teacher retention and recruitment, enrollment, like obviously all these different things come up. Do you guys have some of those same ones, or what are some different challenges you guys might have?
Yes, so I would say some of our challenges consist of course, with the pandemic, the quarantining of students and figuring out that process. And so, really going from virtual to hybrid to being in person and then back to hybrid, I think that has caused some challenges, which are above us and like things that we can't necessarily control. So that's one challenge is the constant change as it relates to our students, whether they are quarantining, whether it is staff members quarantining. That's one challenge. I'd say another challenge is right now burnout. Teachers have been doing a lot of work in trying to maintain our education system. And so I think we're faced with a challenge of teacher burnout where people are just tired. And yeah, so I would say that's another one. And I would say the other challenge that we are facing right now is the learning gap from the last 2 years. Some call it learning loss. I don't necessarily call it learning loss because if you've actually learned something, you don't lose it. I call it a gap because it really is the fact that through virtual learning and through trying to figure that out, there was a lot of time that was missed in education. And so one of our biggest challenges is that our students are have a larger academic gap and trying to go through processes and put in interventions to really, really help close that gap and figure out what each student needs. So yes.
I like how you put it, the gap, and I agree. I like that better than loss, and I just think that literally is the perfect definition of it. Because if you go away from school and you have time away, there's that gap of like that crazy transition period where people were like, "Wait, I'm homeschooled now," kind of like, what? And I was homeschooled my whole life, so like when people went to be homeschooled, I was like, "Hey, that's like that was my whole life," but to be pushed into it when you don't know what that's like or how to navigate it, holy moly, like that's a huge difference. And I'm a huge extrovert, so I know that there's other kids that are probably like extroverts, and when they got sent home they were like, what the heck do I do? I want to be around my friends. Oh, that's crazy. Well, how did you I mean, I'm guessing you guys fully back in person now?
Yeah, we are fully back in person
Okay.
now. And we've been fully back in person since February, at the beginning of
Okay.
February. I would say we are navigating that quite well with our nursing staff and really looking at, when students need to quarantine, we're doing it right away. We're doing contact tracing. But again, I think the biggest challenge is the wide variety of where students are currently academically and trying to figure that out and trying to make sure that we're able to give them what they
Yeah.
need. So, yeah.
How does that, you make obviously a really interesting point. I'm curious. Let's say a kid, obviously multiple students from the last couple of years, they might be behind a little bit. There's that big gap. How do you guys as school leaders then handle that? Is it, hey, I know this is going to be really bad, but you got to go to summer school to catch up for this next year? Do you hold them back? Do you just kind of go, you know what? We'll figure it out later. Kind of how do you guys navigate that and decide how to handle that as a school?
So for me, I'll speak for me. So what I've been doing right now is one, providing the very first thing is providing teachers with professional development on how to address the gap. So that's, I think, the very first step for me, giving teachers more strategies of how to address the gap, whether that is through differentiated learning and whether that is for them figuring out the data and understanding that with this particular data, this is how I respond, this is what I do. And so that's the very first thing I think is providing professional development. The second thing in responding to the gap, I would say, is really taking the time to then say these are where students are and creating an intervention program. And so right now we are in the midst of creating intervention to meet those gaps and creating intervention to really provide students with what they need, but also an extra boost. So that's that. And then I would say the other thing is definitely I am a proponent that when students need to repeat, um, they do. I know some people don't. I am a proponent of that. And the reason being is because when you move students along and just moving them along to move them along, the gap becomes larger and larger. And it also becomes challenging for the third and fourth grade teachers to really go back and close those gaps rather than saying, hey, we may need another year to fill in those areas. So those are some ways.
Okay, I love it. And you guys are K-12.
We are K4. Our organization is K8. But we are K4.
Okay, all right. And with the COVID times, I know some of the things that schools have brought up is people have decided to fully just go remote or fully homeschool, and enrollment has been hard. Have you guys kind of been steady? Are you guys at capacity? How has that been going for you?
Yes. So we actually haven't had any enrollment issues, which is like, thank goodness we haven't. We actually still have a waiting list for all grades for K, first, second, third, and fourth. And I think that speaks to the strength of our school and that individuals want to be a part and families want to be a part. So we haven't really had a dip in enrollment, which is good.
That's fantastic. And being the K4, do you guys then feed into the one above you then? Is that kind of like just
Yes, we do. So like, yep. So they automatically go to our middle school, which is directly across the street from us. So we are like on one side, they are directly across the street.
but no high school yet?
No high school yet, not yet.
Is that in the playing cards you guys are going to add on?
So we thought about it. I'm not really for sure. It's a process. Of course, like that is a reworking of our charter agreement and so on and so forth. And so we shall see.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we shared obviously about challenges. This is the part where I give everybody the opportunity. This is where you get to brag on your school, your teachers, your students. So what's going awesome right now at the school? What's going on?
Yes, I would say our social emotional response has been awesome. We actually hired a new guidance counselor for this year and in preparation of that. And so we have been with the new guidance counselor, we've been creating groups to help students with anxiety and those things. So I think that in itself just really respond because that's a huge part. When you haven't been in school for so long and then coming back and trying to re-socialize is huge. And so we have been really working hard and it's going well with our social emotional part. So that's one thing to definitely brag about. I'd say the other part is our extended learning time. So our time after school is really detailed. And I worked at other schools where the after school time or the extended learning time is kind of just thrown together like hodgepodge. Ours is like systematic, it is fun, it's exciting, but also it is educational. And so that is one other thing that's going really well and really something that is one of the highlights, definitely a highlight of our school. And I'd say another thing I'd like to brag about is just the teachers. We have some amazing teachers here at this school. Teachers who are consistent, teachers who are like giving their all every single day. And amidst the burnout and amidst the overwhelming anxiety and frustration, they're still showing up. And I think that speaks volumes, like it really does speak volumes.
They really are like heroes in all of this. I know obviously with COVID, everybody's gotten a little bit of praise in different areas. Obviously, people working at the grocery store and making sure the shelves are full and stuff. But man, like I've always been thinking about teachers, and even before COVID, just putting up with students all day long of all different walks of life and stuff like that is a lot of times I feel like a thankless job. And so I want to, that's one of the things I love about this podcast is to use it as an encouragement of all the school leaders listening. It's just, I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for you pouring into that next generation because it's so important. I mean, that's our future, right? Right in your classroom are our future kids. And so that's so important. And obviously important too to have, sounds like it, teachers that are sticking around for the consistency side of it, where you're not having to train new people every year with new teachers because they all left. And that speaks volumes of the success your school is already having, it sounds like too.
Yes, and that's a huge part, I think. Consistency and stability. And it becomes a place from the time that I've been here is that families like they become a part. So they know the student, the teachers know the student's brother or the cousin or sister or so on and so forth. So it really becomes a part of the community.
Do you do anything specific for the teachers? I should actually start asking this, I guess, for every episode because I love to get different ideas from the school leaders of, are you doing anything specific for the teachers at the school? And I know this will differ for every school based on even just budget that they have to do stuff. But is there, hey, we buy a coffee every once in a while for them, or I get them a card for their birthday, or is there anything special you guys are doing to just make sure they are loved and they're thanked for what they're doing?
Yes. So what we do, I Wednesdays are a half day, and so professional development generally it is from 1:30 to 4. However, what I've been doing as of late is giving them an extra hour and a half off. So that has on Wednesdays, which has been successful. Teachers have like enjoyed that, which I think for me is rewarding because everybody needs time. And so giving that also had provided bonuses for teachers. We provide a Christmas bonus, and then we also have a bonus that's coming up. And that is our way to show appreciation because I think I'm a big proponent of like, you can tell people they're great, but put your money where your mouth is. So we provided bonuses for teachers. One in December, that was 500. And then we have one coming up that's actually coming out this pay period. That's going to be 750.
That's fantastic.
And so that is something that we're really doing to show that we are grateful and thankful for them.
Man, I love that, and they deserve it, man. That's such a
Yes.
they're
Wish
doing.
we could give them more because they deserve
I
more.
know. I mean, seriously, I've always told people, like, man, if I ever was like running for public office or something, I'd be doing something different in the education space to help make sure, like, raise that up to. I want to make sure that they are making enough that they're good with not trying to switch to do something else. Like, I should be like fulfilled with what they're. And we know teachers. I keep hearing it. They don't do it for the money, which of course that's good. We don't want people doing it just for the money, but people also got to live and they got to pay for their groceries and their food. So, no, that's awesome. I love that you guys are doing that and taking good care of them. As we kind of switch to kind of wrapping it up, I always leave it in the court of the guest of like, hey, what's some final? If there's a final piece of advice, encouragement, inspiration, what would you want to leave with those that are listening?
I would say one thinking about leaving advice with one of their leaders that are listening is to lead from a space of empathy. While this is already a challenging job, it was challenging before COVID. It is challenging every day to come in, and so lead from a space of empathy. I would say that would be one of my encouragements, and then I would say to teachers is something that I say to our teachers is just do the best you can and know that you've done the best you can. And when you know that you've done the best you can, don't worry about overworking yourself. Don't overextend yourself, but do the best you can within your ability. And doing that, I think, really will, one, help move our students along, but also keep you mindful of yourself because that's so important. It is so important that you are still mindful of yourself. Often in the education profession, we give so much of ourselves and we are left on just reserve tank. And so you have to be mindful of yourself and what fuels your fire.
I love it. I think it's a great way to end it. So, everybody, Eric Thompson, a huge shout out. Thank you to being on the podcast today, and obviously pouring into your teachers and your students. And I just want to, from my heart to yours, thank you for pouring into that next generation. And pray that these coming years are just continuing to be awesome for you and your school, and these kids are obviously become great leaders for New Jersey area and beyond. So, thank you so much for being on the
Yes,
podcast today.
thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Well, another huge shout out and a thank you to Eric Thompson for taking time out of his busy day to be on the podcast. I really enjoyed my time with him and learning about his school and what they're doing. And as always, I hope you guys are able to take at least one thing from today's episode, take it back to your school to make it better than it is right now. They're doing a lot of really good things, so there should be at least one thing you guys can take back, maybe about the teacher side of things or the student side of things or navigating the COVID education learning gap, which I love that he shared about. A lot of good things. So I hope you guys were able to take something back. And I wish Eric Thompson and his school nothing but the best. We'll be here next week with another awesome guest on the School Success Podcast. We'll see you then.